We're going to get on to our last panel member, and I've just got to tell you, I've had the pleasure of watching this young man for the last, couple of years. And I remember the very first time that I heard him speak, I made a beeline to him and I said, "Will you please run for office?" And I'd like to think that it was because I talked him into it, and that was all it took. But anyway, you all know Paul, and so Representative Paul Curtman, come on up.
I'm just gonna, can you hear me? Okay. I'm just gonna start out reading some quotes. This one's from Thomas Jefferson. On every question of construction of the Constitution, carry ourselves back in time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning may be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, conform to the probable one in which it was passed. It's from the author of the Declaration of Independence. And in other words, what he's saying is, it just might not be a living, breathing Constitution. Maybe, just maybe, what you should do is you ought to go back and read the minutes that James Madison kept at the Constitutional Convention. He later on said, "Our peculiar security is in possession of a written Constitution. Let us not make it a blank paper by construction." In other words, what he's saying there is, let's not so broadly interpret the Constitution that it might as well just be a blank piece of paper and not have any value to anybody. When he was drafting the Kentucky resolutions, Thomas Jefferson said, "Whensoever the general government assumes undelegated powers, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force." He said the same thing again when he was helping draft some other states' resolutions also. He said, "I believe the states can best govern our home concerns, and the general government our foreign ones." He said, "When all power is drawn to Washington, it will defeat the purposes for which we separated from England in the first place."
That's right.
James Madison, who a lot of people call the father of the Constitution, he's the one that kept the minutes during the constitutional debate. He said, "There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations." And so that's kind of what I want to talk about for just the next couple minutes. I thought I set my timer here. Okay, I'll start it now. 5 minutes. Just kidding. Just kidding. But I just want to make a point that I heard Ed Martin say. We were at this event out in Kansas City, Nullify Now, and the whole idea behind the talk that he gave was that it's not enough to vote. You have to win the argument.
That's right.
And so I want to use what I learned from him that day and say, with all the policies, one of the things that I learned in Jefferson City is that, let me go back to a Jefferson quote real quick. He said, y'all heard the quote about the chains of the Constitution? "Have no confidence in man, but bind him down from his mischief with the chains of the Constitution." Contrast that with what FDR said. He said there is no document that's more marvelously elastic than the Constitution. But see, people today think that is an elastic document. You have the Democrats on the left, and their interpretation stretches it way over to the left. And then instead of sticking to the Constitution as a chain, or even to the party platform, unfortunately in most cases, the Republicans will grab it, and they'll counter those leftist policies by grabbing the Constitution and stretching it way over to the right. And what it does every single time is it grows freedom, it robs you of your property, your tax dollars, and your liberty. And so what we're doing is we're taking a right policy and using that to combat a leftist policy, and nobody's even giving any credit to the Constitution anymore. I was in a committee during the special session, and a Republican actually said this. Somebody came forward to testify against a bill, and somebody said, "I'm not so sure it's the role of the legislature to consider the constitutionality of this bill." I read the Constitution on the House floor in a debate. And I heard a whole bunch of commotion in the back, and somebody actually raised a point of order and tried to convince the speaker that I was out of order for reading from the Constitution. Now, you kind of want to smile and say, "Those idiots." No, those are the people that are getting elected, setting policy, that are taxing you and growing government and taking away your freedom and your liberty. So it's not enough just to go and vote. You have to make sure that you're educating everybody else that's also voting about the principles of freedom and liberty. And people will respond to it because that is an extremely attractive message. Because people throughout the history of the world have died fighting for their freedom and fighting for their liberty. And you can't tell me, a guy who won in a district that is only 56% Democrat, You can't tell me that people don't respond to the message of liberty, because I went up to a guy and gave him my message when I was campaigning, and he told me that he's upset with President Obama because he's not far enough to the left. But he's going to vote for me because he likes what I had to say. I attribute that to the fact that this thing that we call the overwhelming sense of truth that God gives us all when He created us all equal and endowed us all with certain inalienable rights, it's an attractive message, and people want their freedom and they want their liberty protected. And if we can get that argument and win that argument with the people, nullification is not going to be a problem at all. Because it's going to come like that. Because people are going to be able to read the Constitution and recognize what they need to do in order to keep themselves free. It's a simple thing to do, I think. It's an attractive message. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I think Paul hit the nail right on the head when he talked about how it is that an extremely conservative Republican can win, what did you say, a 56% Democrat district, is because truth is sweet to the ear. And he went and told the people the truth about liberty and freedom, and it was sweet to the ear. And that Democrat district, the 56% Democrat district, elected not only a Republican, but a very, very conservative Republican, which makes it even more unbelievable.